I hear the president go, what the heck did I just hear? What the heck is going on? One of the most politically tone-deaf statements I've ever heard, and you can see it in the numbers right here. Americans don't like the inflation. They hate the inflation. They don't love the inflation. They hate the inflation. Inflation net approval, minus 50 points or worse, 50 points underwater or worse. Total polls per president. Trump in 2026, already at least eight polls in which his net approval rating on inflation or the cost of living is negative 50 points or worse. Every other president in every other year, the answer is zero. Trump is not only the first one to reach negative 50 points or worse net approval rating on inflation, he's done it many of times. So when I hear Trump's statement, I feel like Mrs. White and Klug going, what is happening here?
A big aspect and one of the first things that people track in terms of the cost of living is the cost of gas prices.
Yeah.
And how are people feeling about Trump and gas prices?
Yeah, okay, so you see this historic number right here. You know, Trump being the first one ever to get minus 50. He's done it multiple times. No other president's done it. How about an 80% disapproval on gas prices, which of course is fueling this frustration with inflation? Take a look here. The only president with an 80% disapproval rating on gas prices of all time is Trump. In 2026, you can see Trump there. He's pointing the arrow to it. Yes, he has done it. This Iran war has done it. It has fueled record frustration on inflation and record frustration when it comes to gas prices. The only president ever with at least an 80% disapproval rating on gas prices, Donald John Trump, in this year, 2026.
And from yesterday, we've been told that his statement of "I love inflation" just ricocheted and ripped through Capitol Hill. And you can hear from Republican lawmakers the very real concern about what this increase in prices means to their constituents. But of course, that's also tied into the midterm election. Is this frustration trickling down?
Yeah. President Trump may love the inflation. The American people hate the inflation. And I think the Republicans on Capitol Hill absolutely hated Donald Trump's statement. Why? Because it is absolutely funneling down. Okay, Democrats are the party more trusted on inflation. For the first time since the 1970s, it is true now today, we are actually seeing polling in which the Democrats are the party that is more trusted on inflation. I was looking back at all the polls I can find. The last time it really happened in an average of polls was in 1978. Of course, before that inflation boom took Jimmy Carter out. And if history is prologue in this situation, well, it's going to take out the Republican majority in the House as well. So no wonder that Republicans heard that statement and just like me are like, Mrs. White, what did I just hear? Well, you just heard a president who wants to sink his party's midterm fortunes. That's what you just heard. Trump put in a historically strong performance with younger voters. And here we're talking about voters under the age of 45. He beat Kamala Harris with them, or at least beat the prior Republican baselines with them. And you can see it right here on foreign policy. He absolutely crushed Kamala Harris as who was more trusted under the age of 45 on foreign policy. Look at that. Was more trusted than Kamala Harris by 9 points. Come over to this side of the screen, Omar. Look at this. Look at this shift. He has a net approval rating now on foreign policy 40 points underwater, a nearly 50 point switcheroo. So after putting in the strongest performance, more trusted on foreign policy, the first since George W. Bush all the way back in 2004, he has completely lost that advantage way down there. He is no longer groovy, according to the young people of America.
Groovy, that's a great word
Groovy.
Choice.
You're groovy.
You know, big discrepancy here, obviously, but how much is the Iran war contributing to what we're seeing?
I think it's contributing a whole heck of a lot to what we're seeing right here, because just take a look how under the age of 45 feel about Iran. Not worth the cost. Look at this. 4 in 5. 4 in 5, 81% said the Iran war is not worth the cost. And look at Trump's disapproval, basically simpatico with this. 77% of those under the age of 45 say the Iran war, say that Trump's disapproval on the Iran war, way up there like a rocket at 77%. So not worth the cost, Trump disapproval, both converging about 4 in 5 of those under the age of 45. No wonder that Trump's net approval rating on foreign policy among those under the age of 45 is way underwater at minus 40 points.
Well, even within that young group, I mean, what about young Republicans? How do they feel in this?
You think this nearly 50-point switcheroo is bad? You think nearly 4 in 5 disapproving, 4 in 5 saying not not worth the cost of spend. What about young Republicans? This is the Republican base we're talking about here. Take a look at this. Trump's net approval, GOP under age 45. Look at that. He's underwater with them on foreign affairs. Look at that. His net approval rating, 10 points underwater. My goodness gracious. This is Republicans. How about on the Iran war? 14 points underwater with them. So even among young Republicans, Donald Trump has lost the faith of them. And indeed, they want, in fact, the policy for the next Republican president. They do not want to be following Trump's policy on the Iran war. I think we may be going towards a real sort of pivot point within the Republican Party on foreign policy when it comes to young Republicans, as even they have turned against the President of the United States when it comes to foreign policy, foreign affairs, and the Iran war. Turns out that Bibi Netanyahu's political luck might have finally run out, right? You know, Bibi Netanyahu, who was first elected prime minister all the way back when I was in elementary school, and of course has held on to power in some form or fashion to now when I'm long past elementary school. Look at this. Netanyahu is Israel's prime minister after the 2026 election. Look, 50 days ago it was about an even split, 51%. But down it goes, down it goes. Now we're just talking about a 1 in 3 possibility, 33% chance that Netanyahu is still the prime minister after the next elections. So Netanyahu's chances have been going down, down, down into the Red Sea as we're looking at this compared to 50 days ago.
Now, part of the issue isn't, as it is maybe for President Trump, that he's fighting the war on Iran at all. It's that he's not maybe doing it more or better.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah, okay. So simple question is, if the Iran war ended today, would it basically be in Israel's security interest? And just take a look here. I think this kind of gives it away. If Iran war has in fact ended, is it in Israel's security interest? 58% of Israelis and 63% of Israeli Jews say no, it is in fact not in Israel's interest. So the political calculus for Bibi Netanyahu is significantly different than it is for Donald Trump. If Israel continues on in this war, it may actually be politically advantageous for Bibi Netanyahu. In a way, it simply put isn't for Donald Trump. And that is why I think we've been seeing the news reports in recent days of the two of them not necessarily lined up in terms of the goals when it comes to the war in Iran.
Swear words.
Yes.
Swear words on phone calls.
Yes.
Reportedly. How do Israelis feel about how Netanyahu and the Israeli government is waging the war on Hezbollah?
Yeah, so this Iran is one thing. How about Hezbollah? And, you know, again, here, look at this. Israelis on the handling of Hezbollah. Look at this. Not good, poor. 52%. The majority, just 18% say good. 53% of Israeli Jews, in fact, say not good, poor. So we're talking about a war on two fronts, against Iran, against Hezbollah. And what you're essentially seeing is that the Israelis not so hot to trot on all of this.
Okay, so Netanyahu has been prime minister for a total of almost 20 years over various times since 1996. Clearly no term limits there. How do Israelis feel about maybe instituting such things?
Yeah, okay. This might be the biggest indictment of Netanyahu of all. Two-term limit for Israel prime ministers after Netanyahu. 61% of Israelis, 65% of Israeli Jews say yes. I think that Netanyahu, you know, you eventually wear out your political welcome. We'll see. Bibi Netanyahu has pulled rabbits out of hats before, but his luck might have finally run out.
The absolute ultimate political survivor.
Yeah. Americans don't find this thing to be appropriate. Take it here. Take a look here. UFC White House fights are appropriate. Just 16%. Just 16% overall. And among Republicans, even among Republicans, you know, the diehard base Republican Party with Trump through thick and thin, just 31% of Republicans. His approval rating amongst Republicans overall, as you know, usually hovers a little bit north of 80%. So we're talking 50 points lower here. And, you know, this overall, you know, being 16%, you know, what is it, like 28% of Americans, you know, believe in telepathy? So this is even below that.
Does this fall into a broader pattern with the White House and voters' minds?
Yeah, I think this is the big problem here, Omar, which is, you know, Americans just don't think that Donald Trump and this White House is in touch with them because, you know, they put on stuff like that Americans don't really care about. Take a look here. Say the White House is out of touch with people like you. 60% overall. We're talking about 3 in 5 Americans. And look among independents. 80% of independents say that the White House is out of touch with people like them. So all of a sudden you have a White House that is potentially putting on events such as this UFC fights. And, you know, Americans' top issue is inflation. And what's Trump's net approval rating on that? Like minus 50? And you go to yourself, okay, appropriate, no on the UFC fights. And then you put it together with what they actually care about. No wonder that the American people say 60% say the White House is out of touch with people like them and 80% of independents.
I mean, it's a big push. Why do you think Trump loves the UFC so much.
Yeah, okay. You know, we've seen Donald Trump go to these UFC fights before, right? We see that there may be UFC fights, you know, on the White House lawn come this weekend. And, you know, it's because the UFC and MMA is a safe space. It is a safe space. It's a nice place. It's warm and lovely for the President of the United States. Party ID league among fans of MMA. Look at this. Republicans hold the lead among MMA fans. Look at that, plus 14. Versus soccer, if he goes to the World Cup, I don't think that's going to be friendly territory for the president. Look at that. Democrats hold the party ID lead there of plus 12. And we know that Donald Trump was booed at the Garden. Look at that. Democrats hold a 28-point lead on fans of the NBA.
So Marco Rubio compared the founding of the UFC to landing on the moon.
Yes, he did.
However you feel about that.
Yes.
How are the prediction markets viewing his chances as sort of emerging from the 2028 pack?
Yeah, one of the most bizarre comparisons I've ever heard. Chance to be the 2028 GOP president nominee. Look at this. Rubio, Vance, neck and neck. And I think part of Rubio appealing in 2028 will be appealing to those young fans, appealing to those MMA fans. And at this point, look at that. His chances way up. He's really in a dogfight with J.D. Vance for the nomination, according to the Kalshi prediction markets at this point. The opinion of Bill Gates has changed tremendously since his associations with Jeffrey Epstein were learned about. And you could just see it right here. I mean, Bill Gates' net favorability. Back in 2018, there was perhaps no other American who was as popular as Bill Gates was. His net favorability rating was plus 74 points. But look where it was by 2025. Way down. What is that? That is a nearly 70-point drop way down there to just plus 6 points. And I've seen some non-Ipsos polling. These are Ipsos. I've seen some non-Ipsos polling to suggest that now Bill Gates' net favorability rating is now negative in the United States of America. Quite the steep decline from being one of the most well-liked Americans back in 2018 when he was 74 points on the positive side of the ledger.
How does that compare to the decline of opinion of other business leaders over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just part of a larger story. And it just is part of a larger story, any association with Jeffrey Epstein. Take a look here. Say the Epstein files has lowered your trust in political and business leaders. You get the rare trifecta here. A majority of Republicans, 67%, independents, 73%, 86% of Democrats, 75% of all adults, a clear majority. You know, when I get off of air and I talk to people in the quote-unquote real world, the Epstein files is consistently brought up, and they believe it is part of just a larger story in which business leaders and political leaders are far less trusted than before.
Well, what else is the impact, Ben, of the Epstein files kind of on the opinions of the rich and powerful?
Yeah, exactly right. You know, it's part of this rich and powerful that they can get away with stuff. Take a look here. Epstein files show that powerful people are rarely held accountable. Again, the rare trifecta, 82% of Republicans, 80% of independents, 90% of Democrats, 84% of all adults. As I said, the Epstein files sort of matches what people believe out there, which is the rich and powerful can get away with stuff that other people simply can't.
So I mentioned Todd Blanche off the top, right? Where do the prediction markets put Todd Blanche in terms of the chances of being Trump's next attorney general?
Yeah, those chances are falling. Take a look here. Chances Trump's next attorney general, according to Kalshi prediction markets, back on June 8th, not so long ago, 71%. Now just a 63% chance. And keep in mind, there's a Republican Senate majority. So the fact that it's so low really is another indication of how potential the connection of the Epstein files you don't want to be.